Well, hello there. My name is John Meyer, and I wrote a song with 54 strings. The obvious question, why? Well, to be honest, I thought it would make a good YouTube video. I also wanted to demonstrate how I go about writing a production music track, specifically how I go about making a track layer by layer. The trick here is that even though the guitars and mandolins and ukuleles sound different, when you layer them all together, they occupy basically the same frequency range. So there's going to be a lot of muddiness and mess if I don't do this right. When I was recording this track, I took detailed notes of the process of how I came up with the idea. We all know that starting a piece of music is often the most difficult part, and so I wanted to show you at least how I would go about the beginning stages of getting an idea into the computer. This track is going to be part of an album that is full of cues that are positive, organic, light, and fun. You know, think major chords, not too many minor chords, at least we don't stay on them for too long. Get back to the major, keep it happy, think Chip and JoJo. I knew from the start that I wanted the first 30 seconds of this track to be the most engaging, most interesting, all the instrumentation in, my best work. Now, sometimes I write building tracks and there's a place for that, but I wanted to put everything out there at the beginning, then drop down for an extended B section that could be used under dialogue for extended period of time, loopy quality, but constantly changing, and then build back into a transition section that would take us back into the A section and then to a nice composed ending. So let's go into Pro Tools and take a look at the track. This track started one day when I was messing around with my Taylor guitar that I had converted into a fake poor man's dobro. Basically, I put a pencil over the nut, raised up the strings, and I used this guy to play it, and I'm still learning. I've got some basic licks, but that's how this came about. It doesn't sound like a dobro. Dobros have a more metallic quality to them, and then I ended up playing some basic chords. So I started working on this basic progression, and I shelved that, and here I am trying to figure out what I want to play with the ukulele. I honestly don't know how to play the ukulele in the proper way, and I often just randomly tune the strings to find something that I like, and in this case it's a simple D-A, D-A, so it's in fifths, but I found this simple little line that I could play repetitively. I'm already starting to think about layers and how I want every single part to be simple. Instead of dumping everything into the track and then trying to peel back layers, it's almost like I'm taking a glass and pouring just a little bit of water. And they don't sound great on their own, but as I start adding things, I'm giving myself space to build the track. So here is the first track that I recorded, the ukulele. In the B section, I simplified the part. At this point, I don't think I had the arrangement sketched out. I just had that part, but I went ahead and played an ending. Not much of one, as you can see, but I always try to make sure that when I'm playing a part, if I'm working fast, that I go and record an ending. And maybe it's the 1 chord, maybe it's the 5 chord, the 4 chord, just something, and I keep them on the track. I just play some chords that I could then use in B sections or whatever, so I don't have to re-mic the instrument. I lied, there are some non-guitar parts. I did some vocals. Here is me singing the high part. And then I added a low part. All right, next I wanted to have some type of melodic line, and not a solo, but a repetitive line that I could add in that would grab your attention. A point for later on, we always make alternate mixes that are scaled down versions of the mix, and I knew that I would take this gut string guitar and drop it in the first alternate mix, but I wanted to have something, some kind of ear candy that caught your attention. I ended up doubling this track, but here's the line that I played. And I doubled it and panned them left and right. Now if I add in the ukulele, and my voice, and let's throw in that fake dobro chord. Now at this point I needed a pulsing sound. I'm getting into rhythmic sounds that I might normally go to either strumming guitars or bass or whatever. But my challenge is to use all of these guitars. I have this guitar at my house. It's owned by my friend Joel Cameron. He left it here because he doesn't play. And this is what I came up with for the low pulsing sound. Now I went to the Sundown Serenade, which is a guitar that my friend Travis, I don't own half of these instruments, people leave them at my house, but that is this cool old Gretsch guitar, and I always keep it tuned to DADGAD in case I want to play an open tuning, and this is what, and I played simple chords for this one. Not much to it, but in context, one of my favorite guitars to work in is my Baby Taylor that I have high strung, or Nashville Tuning. So Nashville Tuning is, see if I can get this right without holding it in my hand. It's like basically taking a set of 12 string and only using half of them. And so your E, A, D, and G are an octave up, and your B and E are the same. I'm probably wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll put it on the screen. What I'm trying to do is play upbeats because I don't have anything playing that and rhythm. So if we listen to that in context. So we're slowly filling out the frequency spectrum as best we can, but also making sure to fill in our subdivisions. From there we use my Froggy Bottom, which is my pride and joy. I probably told you the story in a previous video, but I got a hail damage check for my car in my early 20s and I spent it all on this guitar. It's handmade, it's beautiful, and here's a line I played. In context. I almost forgot the mandolin, which the mandolin is playing a harmony to the gut string or the nylon string line. So here's the nylon string. So here's where we are at this point for the A section. Which I'm happy with, but there's no percussive elements. Now, normally I would use drums, but I figured I have to beat up these guitars in order to make my percussion sounds. So I started with the fuzzy mallet on the strings. And what I did is I muted everything but the low D and A. I took the E and tuned it down to a D, like I did on the previous guitar track that I don't think I mentioned. And then I hit the strings on the downbeats like this. Then I went on and used brushes, same deal, tried to keep it from resonating too much, and then I used these black brushes, I don't know what they're called, plastics or something. And that's pretty much everything for the A section. Let's listen. Now for the B section, continuing with percussion, I did some basic hand slaps on the guitar. And let's listen to the B section. I mentioned earlier that it sounds loopy. It does sound that way, but I made sure to play the parts, and I'm subtly building and changing as I go with each track, so it adds that human element and it doesn't sound looped, I hope. You may be noticing this track that says EBow. I used the EBow on, I believe I used the B string, but I played a D and then turned it on and did this. I've never done that before on acoustic guitar. It has a really cool vocal quality. So the B section continues on. There's nothing crazy new in it, but then we go to the end of the B, which I guess would be more of like a bridge, and it sounds like this. Now we're in the final A section, and I changed the way I played the mallet. Double hit, Sundown Serenade. Same thing. On the froggy bottom, I did some emphasis here. Mandolin. I added more movement in between the harmony for the gut string. The song moves on, and I don't normally do this, but there's almost a stair-step ending. Here's a few bars before the ending. A nice ending, it's telegraphed, you know it's coming, editors know it's coming, and you have a nice buttoned-up ending. I haven't talked at all about the mixing, but I do want to point out a few things that I did to make some of these tracks pop. Notice on this guitar track, if I bypass all of this, I don't have any bass instruments, so I wanted to make this sound really pop and cut through at lower frequencies. So what I did is I started with this EQ here at 160 Hertz, and I boosted quite a bit, but then I run it through this earth, and I'm boosting this, but I've also turned on the low cut. And what I do is I sharpen the drop off and the slope, and I moved the frequency around to where it's pinpointed that D note. So let's see what happens when I turn this on and off. If I move it lower, higher. And then I'm adding some thickness over here, but it's helping that low frequency really cut through in the bottom. Well, that's basically it. I'm gonna run it from the top to bottom, and then I'll have a few more words for you at the end. Well, that's all I've got. I hope you enjoyed this. I don't always write music like this. If I'm making a John Mayer solo album, it's probably not going to have all of these qualities, but this music gets used often, and I love when I see it used with incredible visuals and creative storytelling. Well, that just makes my day, and hopefully this track will have a life that goes on for the next decade or so. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking, subscribing. That really helps me out, and I'll see you next week.